Custom Robo is actually very fun. Custom Robo is actually really fun. Okay, stop it, stop. Custom Robo is actually. Stop it! You might know Custom Robo Arena on Nintendo DS or Custom Robo on Nintendo Gamecube, but you might not have been aware of the original game, Custom Robo, being released only in Japan and on Nintendo 64. This English translation patch for the game, produced by the ROM translation group Trinket, was originally released in 2017, making this 1999 game finally available to play for English readers. Trinket did a stellar job, with only 1 or 2 instances where there were issues. This is a brilliant translation. It works well for the game that developer Noise produced those many years ago. The Custom Robo games are really fun, fast-moving 3D arena brawlers, with a specific system in place for things like projectiles, traps, and movement. And as the name suggests, much of the game is about customizing one's robo to fit the battle. And that happens the more fights you win, leading to new parts to try out. You play as a young kid who's just started getting interested in playing Custom Robo, the hit game that everyone is seemingly playing. You get Ray, your bot, and begin your quest destroying children at school and at the local park, collecting new weapons, tools, and tears from your opponents. Quickly, you learn about the cast of characters in the game, with multiple rival characters who you'll have to trounce more than once. Truth be told, it's a fairly easy game on the outset, and the story is fairly tame for a while into the campaign. You're just a normal kid, taking tournament trophies home like nobody's business, upsetting popular upstarts and putting entitled Custom Robo players in their place. It's nothing super crazy, but it's still pretty satisfying. Even when the stakes get noticeably higher, things don't get too creative. You end up having to fight against a corrupt syndicate of evildoers called something hilariously malevolent, the Dark Dread Organization. Get it? Because they're the bad guys? The group, shortened to just Dread, puts on these dark battles, which, you get it? Because they're evil? Dark battle, yeah, anyway. Which are basically just underground robo fights. Sounded more deadly, but no one even really gets injured. It's not like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow game where your soul is on the line, it's just the same Custom Robo fight, but, you know, more hardcore, I guess. Less rules, annoying lava. The game does get harder as it progresses, but not by much, except right at the end of the game, where the game dials it up like crazy in the last few battles. More on that later. Yeah, the story really isn't anything special, but there are some fun characters to watch develop at least. I do love a game with multiple rivals for your character to grow with and overcome. Though it would have been nice to get more dynamic development for the other characters throughout the campaign, versus just shoehorning it in all at the end of the story. The journeys the characters go on are fine, but they really could have been much better. There's also some threads that never get explained, like this weird old Custom Robo guy who Deus Ex Machinas his way into the story, seemingly just for plot development. Yeah, he's interesting. Who knows, maybe it's all connected and explained in that Japanese exclusive N64 sequel game, or that Game Boy Advance Custom Robo game that, well, yeah, that also never got released in the West, but you know, that one's like a 2D fighting game, and I don't know about that one. Either way, all of this is to say that the story isn't the main reason to play this game. It's really the fast-paced and addicting gameplay. Reminding me a bit of Power Stone, if you ever played that on Dreamcast. You play as Ray Mark 1, or well, I guess we just call him Ray in this, but yeah, anyway. And clear through opponent after opponent, getting new pods, new guns, and new legs to mix and match with, all to optimize the tool set to defeat the respective enemy. And man, is it fun, learning to use new equipment and striking down opponents. Moves like the forward dash and other techniques for mobility become really imperative as the game progresses, though there are some ways to abuse the power and range of some guns to get the edge. You see the evolution of many parts too, with your character receiving differing versions of the same part, sometimes just being entirely improved or different. Customizing for much of the campaign is a luxury. It really depends on how you want to play. However, later on, customization becomes heavily necessary to beat some opponents. Trial and error being part of the strategy of building an optimized part kit for the specific battle. Again though, it's really not hard until those last few bosses. Want evidence of this? Well, I never used a pod until the last few fights. I actually only found out about pods on the pseudo last fight of the game. Yeah, it seems I may have haphazardly blazed through some early game tutorials. Anyway. And these last few fights are tough, but manageable if you pull through. Makes it especially easy that there's no consequences for losing. You just retry the fight, and you get the option to lower the difficulty if you lose enough times. It's ultimately a pretty forgiving game. It's a shame it never got a full localization back in its day. It might have helped the one on Gamecube gain more traction, but, you know, that's also kind of hard to say. Considering the N64 and Gamecube weren't Nintendo's best-selling consoles, maybe it wouldn't have mattered anyway. It's just so tragic. The franchise hasn't seen anything in over a decade, with the closest thing being Little Battler's Experience or LBX on 3DS, and that was fine but not nearly close to the system that Noise had developed. At least, I hope to see the sequel N64 game eventually translated by passionate enough fans, but I'm happy enough with what Star Trinket has already done. Translating a game with a pretty decent sized script is no easy feat, especially when you're doing it out of the goodness of your hearts and not for money. So kudos Star Trinket, and kudos to Noise, the developer. Your custom robo games are great, despite unfortunately just going so underappreciated. But alright, all that being said, Dark Dread Organization, come on, that one, guys, that's a bit much, come on.